All right, folks, it's time to get serious. If you have been intending to get your financial shit together and you still haven't made an appointment with Molly Morris, you need to do so now. Go to M3 Virtual Accounting and you can have a completely free consultation where you will talk about what it is you do and what you need, and Molly will determine whether or not she can help you. And I just really want to emphasize to everybody, I wish so much I had hired her sooner. Again, it's m3virtualaccounting.com.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Ted Lasso, Season 2, Episode 8, Man City. In this episode, the title Man City feels really appropriate because we're dealing with a lot of men and their whole deal. And even though we don't win the game, I feel like there are some other victories in this episode that are more important. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
What the hell was that?
Nobody
Nobody listening is going to hear it because I'm going to cut that out.
Okay.
But for those interested, I was saying my name and it sounded like there was a dinosaur roaring somewhere in the background.
Yeah, it's Friday night in Delco and people are out and their mufflers are not on. And everybody is just driving a hot rod, it sounds like. But then when you look at the car, it's like a fucking Camry, which I never understand.
There is nothing quite like shitty cars that have been souped up in weird ways. And you're just like, but why was that the thing that you prioritized? Like, what? That doesn't help. You know it doesn't help, right? But, so this episode, oh boy, emotional. I felt very unprepared for how hard this went. So we start off with Doctor Sharon, not Ted, for like the first good 5-10 minutes. We do not see Ted at all. It's just her and her routine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and her talking to her own therapist, who is sort of mocking her because she is accusing Ted of some shit that she does herself, but it's just a slightly different methodology, but it's the same intent.
Oh, the way you use your intellect to build, sort of keep people away, and then the way Dr. Sharon responds is so funny.
And then she stops and is like, "Okay, I hear that." But this is the truest thing. Like, we get more angry at people who do the kind of thing that we know we're guilty of. And it makes us uncomfortable to see a person operate in a way that we feel ashamed of. And it reminds us of our shame. You know? Right. It's this weird thing that happens. So she gets on her bike.
I want to mention
heading in. Oh,
one of the things that her therapist says to her is that you have to be vulnerable. Like, you need to open up to Ted. That's what it's probably going to take to get him, and Dr. Sharon doesn't really seem like she is feeling that particular bit of advice.
Yeah, she gets forced into the position of having to do that involuntarily, which is really interesting. So yeah, she's riding her bike. I love that she yells at somebody that their dog hates that sweater.
Yeah, she's
I don't know why that cracked me up so bad. As somebody who has recently come into the possession of several dogs, I have been looking at Christmas sweaters for Pippin.
I'm sure you
I'm
have.
not going to lie. I just can't quite bring myself to do it because I don't. When pets just reject clothing, and you can feel in their body language when they are not okay with it. It just breaks my heart so much that I don't know that I can put myself through that kind of rejection. So I have gotten a tartan, red and green plaid bow tie collar for Christmas. That will put a little bow tie on him and take a picture of him in front of the Christmas tree. And that's going to be our little
I mean, he's still so young that you could probably get him into the, you still wearing clothes because he's just a snuggly baby.
Maybe.
This is the time if this is the kind of life you would like to have, now is the
Dressing
time
my
to start
puppy up.
that. If you want to be one of those people, you got to get
Make
it
some
on the
good
ground
points.
floor.
All right, I might have to go open the Amazon listing again. Adorable little sweater. With the
Instead
bow
of dog
tie,
shaming.
forget it.
In the chat, Chris says instead of dog shaming, she's owner shaming.
Yes, I like
Right?
that.
Yeah. Because she doesn't say anything about the dog. Like, she doesn't insult the dog. She's just
No.
like kind of advocating for the dog on his behalf.
And she's really clearly enjoying herself. And we find out later that for her, riding her bike is her happy place, as she puts it.
Yeah.
And she rounds a corner and there is a fucking car coming right at her.
Yeah.
And we just
Pretty
slam
fast,
into a cut of her on the ground with her phone ringing next to her, and she's unconscious, and it looked bad. I got really worried for a minute, But we find out that she is okay. She has a concussion, but there's no other broken bones or anything like that, which honestly feels like a miracle, because that was a head-on collision.
Yeah.
How did you make it through? But the person who has come to pick her up is Ted.
She is mortified in his presence.
I swear to God, she is not only the whole thing with him talking to them about the NHS and how she doesn't have to pay anything.
Oh my God.
I'm so glad they kept that. That needs to be mentioned.
Talking to the nurse, and she say he's like, he can't get over it. I could come in here with every bone in my body broken, and y'all would just patch me up and send me home. And she's like, goddamn right we will. And it's sad too, because a lot of that stuff is on the chopping block over there. They're really close to fucking undoing all that shit, because they're going through a very similar thing that we're going through here in the States.
Because they are looking at the United States and thinking we look great and they should copy us, which really is so baffling. What about any of the way we're set up is appealing to you all? The profits. I guess I'm being very stupid when it's the profits is the answer. Oh my God, duh.
We could be making money. Why aren't we making money?
Right?
Yeah.
So before we deal with Ted picking her up, the start of the episode, because her whole thing and getting hit is the cold open. Mm-hmm. And then we go to the credits, and then we have Beard and Roy staring each other down in the locker room office.
This is such a weird
dead silent
scene.
I don't know what's happening here.
They're both very comfortable with not speaking.
But they're staring at each other. And it doesn't feel like it's comfortable. It feels challenging. And I think it's meant to be that they're comfortable, but...
Well, it's a little bit of both. They're both so weird in this very specific way that they there's no need, we're not going to just make small talk, because we are not small talk guys.
Mm-hmm.
But also, to your point, they are looking at each other dead in the face. It's not one is on his phone texting and one's reading a book. So it's this very aggressive, I can be just quiet and comfortable and look at you as long as you can be quiet and comfortable and look at me. Almost like a game of chicken almost. A weird game of
very
chicken.
much so. Yeah, so then Keely comes in and she's excited that there's a spokesperson opportunity that could be really good for the club, and either of them would they be interested, and they just look at her, and eventually she just says, all right, well, fuck you both, and leaves. And just seconds later, Nate comes in very excited because he's going to be a spokesperson, which I really hope Nate never finds out that it was just that there was nobody else there that she could ask. He was the last resort. When
she leaves, Beard is I really respect that we didn't have to say anything. And Roy is oh, she just gets us.
She's dealt with Roy long enough. She's here we go. Another Roy. Okay, I know how to deal with this.
So I want to ask you if, because there's a lot going on in this episode, and I'm curious if you haven't been, I'm going to ask you to going forward. Does Nate? I want you to keep an eye on Nate, and if he looks any different to you at all.
Okay.
And did he look different to you at all this episode? Did you notice anything about him?
Not really.
Okay.
No, nothing in particular. I noticed that he was wearing a suit another couple times.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just that he's like dressing up a little bit more frequently.
Yeah, he's suit and tie coach now.
Gotcha. Yeah,
That is definitely also something that's happening. Like the way he's presenting himself is starting to evolve.
Yeah, I was surprised that this episode, considering how heavy it is on Dad's stuff, we don't really get into anything with Nate and his dad at all. And that's fine. It would have been pretty packed, but
right.
Nevertheless. So all right. So we have that moment, and then I think is when we jump to we're in the locker room. And we get Sam.
Before we jump to Sam, when Nate comes in about the spokesperson thing, they are also looking for Ted, and they've gotten a message that he's got an emergency, and Nate is really like, well, wants like a reason, like wants details, and both Roy and Beard are just like, yo, he does. It's his
none
emergency.
Of our business.
I think is what Roy says, right? And then Roy is like, okay, I've got to go. And Nate is like, where are you going? And Roy has, it's none of your fucking business. Like, it's a moment of like having Roy and Beard not need to know all this extra information because they feel like secure. And, and Nate comes across in this moment to me anyway, as like you wonder, like, why do you need all this backup information? Like, what?
Because he's like you and me, and anytime that he has to do something that is not orthodox to the routine, feels like he has to over explain himself and have lots of reasons and justifications instead of just saying because that's what I'm doing today. And he doesn't understand other people not feeling the need to explain themselves, which same, frankly.
Yeah. And also is like a little like he's baffled, but also I feel like kind of offended too, because it's not the way he moves through the world, But
and I'm assuming that his father probably anytime he wanted to do a thing, it was a whole procedure to justify why he was going to do it the way he was going to do it. And also that's just like part of being like not neurotypical is like over explaining yourself. I found out. And I used to get in such arguments with my father because with him, anytime I would try to explain, it was an excuse. I was making excuses. And I'm just like, how is just telling you what happened excusing me? I'm explaining a situation because you were acting angry like you wanted to know. But now that I start to tell you, all of a sudden, now I'm the problem for a different reason again. Okay, cool. Anyway, I relate to Nate sometimes. I'm just saying. So yeah, eventually they get to the point where he's like, well, who's going to run the training? And finally Beard is like, you can run the training. And Nate is like, thank you. Oh my God.
Now that he doesn't need any additional information. He just runs out the door.
So we have this bit in the locker room where Jamie is spotting for Colin, is it? That's like on the bench. Poor Colin is about to fucking get his head taken off. And I really enjoy that Sam is reading A Wrinkle in Time. And I'm just going to say that I think that Roy was reading it in the locker room and just left it somewhere. And it's just being picked up by everybody as group reading. And his dad is calling, and we get this moment of finding out that the company that was like related to Dubai Air, they are not going to be drilling in Nigeria anymore. They're like canceling their whole thing because of what he did and his team did. And I really liked, I had meant to mention this last time, I think, and I don't think I did, that they have banter as their sponsor on their shirts now. And there are people in the stands who have the old shirt that says the Dubai thing on it, which I just kind of liked that detail of like, not everybody's going to go and buy the new shit.
Right.
But
I love
scene...
to.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Right before Sam's dad calls, we see Jamie gets a call from his dad that he ignores.
Right.
And then it cuts to Sam getting a call from his dad.
Yeah.
And it picks right up. I will say, someone had mentioned when this aired, and I never followed up. I saw some people disagree with it, but somebody actually mentioned when Jamie's dad calls, Jamie looks at the phone and it says dad, but it has quotes around it. And when Sam's dad calls, it just says dad. And there was a conversation. Some people were like, no, if you put dad as the nickname, then your phone will save it with the quotes around it. And if you just put dad as but I don't know if that's true or not. But that one screenshot sent people theorizing, did Jamie really put his dad as in quotes?
That feels a little too smart for Jamie, to
right?
be honest. That's the thing I feel Roy would do maybe, but not Jamie. But it is interesting, even if it's a nickname, it means that he has his father's full name in his phone first. Whereas that means that Sam doesn't. His is just dad. And mine says mama, for my mom. It doesn't have her full name.
Yeah,
so.
mine says mommy as well. It doesn't I don't have her first or last name in my phone.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
so the implication, it is very interesting to think about. And then when we get to the end of this episode, we already knew his dad was a piece of shit because we met him before. But I don't know if we were 100% ready for what we got.
Well, we'll get there. So this moment with Sam, his dad is super proud of him. It was a nice thing because we had said before, his dad seemed kind of hard on him about the sponsorship thing when it felt like you could have a conversation without being so accusatory right away. And I felt like this sort of made me go, okay, all right, there's the nice guy that I want Sam's dad to be. And he straight up says how proud of him he is. And you can just see Jamie watching this come because he's on speaker. And there's a look of complete incomprehension on his face. This is an alien thing that you would not only answer the phone in the middle of a workout, but the whole thing be so warm. And his father saying that his son made him proud, and the son replying that his father inspired him. It could be so easily so corny and bad, but it's not. You sense the sincerity in all of it.
Right.
And that's the last time we see Jamie in the locker room. He leaves. And so there's the whole thing later with the 3 dots, but he isn't even there for it. Yeah. And I very much noticed that he's not over Sam's shoulder.
Yeah, I looked for him as well, and it's because I couldn't remember if he was there for that. But yeah, he leaves pretty much right as Sam is on the phone. And I just imagine that it is just so hard for him to see kind of up close what other people's, father relationships with their father is like.
Yeah. So because we are going to have so many dense things to talk about, I don't really want to go scene by scene too much. I'm kind of doing it here to set up what we're talking about for each character. But I do want to really quickly touch on the scene where Sam goes and finds Higgins and
Jamie
goes and finds Higgins to set up the tickets for his dad because he got a text. And he asks what Higgins' relationship is like with his dad. And Higgins says that it's complicated, but you really get the sense when he says that it's complicated in the ordinary way. In the way that we all kind of are with our parents, it feels like, there's just, of course it is. It always is.
Yeah.
But when he says, I try to love him for who he is and not for who he's not, that felt like the kind of trite thing that you say when somebody is dealing with a mostly reasonable, stable relationship, and you guys butt heads and clash in the way parents do with their kids, but it's not a straight up dysfunctional, abusive thing, that is not bad advice if this were not Jamie.
Right. If Jamie's situation wasn't if his father wasn't as bad as we find out him being, and has been throughout Jamie's life, because Jamie had told us about his dad at the spirit, cleansing barrel fire deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I said, we met his dad when Jamie was playing for Man City in season 1, and he was yelling at him for doing the pass. So Higgins, I guess I don't know how aware Higgins is, of Jamie and his father's deal.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And so the answer, he gives him a very sort of pat answer, Also, I guess, they are at work. And, you don't want to, how into it can we get?
Sure.
And also, it's fun. The funniest thing to me about that whole exchange is not to miss the line about, they should write songs about it.
Oh, my God, yeah.
But also, it's probably really a weird thing to have somebody like Jamie Tart show up and be, all sincere and asking, a really deep question,
Yeah.
You're not really prepared for that.
For me, somebody that I wouldn't expect doing that, I would be, giving it more gravity, because I'm this must be really, this is not somebody who comes and is vulnerable ever. So if he is, this must be a real fucking problem.
Yeah.
But understandably, Higgins has shit to do, so.
He's in a fucking broom closet, for God's sake. The man has got a lot of things happening in his life right now. Close.
So,
he asks me when to leave the door open or closed. He says close. It just, that way you don't get as many questions.
Makes sense to me. So I think maybe we should just jump ahead and deal with Jamie and what happens.
Okay.
Because the game goes really badly.
Mm-hmm.
They lose is it 5-0?
Mm-hmm.
And truly agony to watch. It was so painful.
It was,
and it's intercut with the coaches on the side trying to come up with a plan and panicking and talking over each other. They're not communicating well. And then the pub where people are slowly just leaving and the place is emptying out,
And the thing about the game for me is, as you watch each coach get frustrated and their passion get out of control, and that fantastic bit of physical comedy with Beard when he leaves and discusses and trips over the thing, and I laughed so goddamn hard.
That was so unexpected. I was just what's just happening? It took me a second to even process it. Yeah,
it was so good. But you see the coaches desperate to try to come up with a game plan. What are we going to do? They're yelling at the ref, and Nate gets carded and put out the game for insulting a ref, who I think is a real ref. I think that guy is a real football.
Yeah. Okay.
But Ted is just aggressively cheerleading. You guys, we can do it. We can do it.
He doesn't have a plan at all. He's just.
I'm just going to, by sheer force of good intentions, and I'm just going to cheer you guys to success. And
have you been watching Abbott Elementary this season?
I have.
You know the episode with the egg drop?
Yeah.
This is giving egg drop. Just saying. Those who are not watching Abbott Elementary, check it out. It's good times.
It really is.
Just I'm going to positivity my way through this by sheer force of will. Sir, no. This team needs a fucking plan. And it's not even about after a certain point whether you're going to win or not, because you're probably never going to catch up. But it's about getting it together enough that you can walk off the field and feel like you were problem solvers in the moment and kept your head, there comes a point where it's less about the outcome and more about how you handled it.
Right.
And he just doesn't handle it. And I'm wondering if Beard is going to have this because Beard has been very frustrated with Ted's attitude of just believing in people and not actually having a method a lot of the time. And the way things end with him being I'm just going to sort of go try and walk this off. What is it he says?
Shake it off.
Shake it off. He invites Ted, but there was a sense to me he didn't really want Ted to come. It kind of felt like he was annoyed and really just wanted to be by himself,
It was a hard loss for the team, and I think Beard invites Ted hoping that this loss means something to Ted, and that Ted is going to be just as shaken up by it and need to, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like he wants Ted to be as broken as he is up about it, you know? Like, I want this is a fucking important thing that just happened to us, and it sucked, and I want to know that it sucks for you too.
Yep. But Ted has some other shit that's bigger that's broken, so he does not have time for this at the moment, which I understand. But so I was not processing exactly what was going on, because you see Jamie's dad in the stands. And I was really confused because he was wearing Jamie's name, but he wasn't wearing the team colors. And I had forgotten about Jamie on the Man City team. So I was just like not understanding what was happening. And it wasn't until he comes into the locker room that I was like, oh, right. He's cheering for his own home team, but he's not actually supporting his son, which truly... the kind of person that you have to be to cheer against your own child, but be wearing their name, like, what even is in your head?
Yeah.
And he comes in a locker room that is so subdued.
This performance is fucking bananas. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like, everything you need to know about this man, he tells you in this scene. Like, it's everything you need to know about this fucking guy. This actor is, and I know he's, like, well-known British actor, but I don't think I've ever seen him in anything. But
I didn't recognize him, but
apparently he's been in, like, a million things. Like, if you go to his IMDb or whatever, he's just, like, a well-known character actor. But holy shit, I was so impressed with this performance.
Yeah, it is not an easy thing to play someone who is willing to treat a situation this way, because there are so many layers here. One, you are admitting you weren't cheering for your own son. Two, you are admitting you weren't cheering for the team you are surrounded by in this room. Three, you are gloating over your win and their humiliating loss. 4, they are surrounding you in a way that could be dangerous for you, and you have no concern about it. No. And there's also, for me, the aspect of just most people who aren't probable psychopaths are going to be willing to, like, with their kid, if they were going to be shitty to them, they would want everyone else to think they're a good person. Like, a lot of abusers do the thing where they mask for everyone else so that nobody believes the abused. And the fact that he is willing to let himself be seen completely is wild to me. And it's the kind of thing that I have a really hard time understanding, because I am so desperate to be approved of all the time, that somebody who doesn't care about that feels like a fucking alien to me. Like, how do you not give a shit?
His father,
and, you know, he gets off on it. That's the power move, is he's holding this entire room full of grown men hostage, and he likes it. And that's the part that I'm just like, what?
He is reveling in it. He is, like, the way he dances, like, the way he's moving, you know what I mean? This is like a little kid about to fuck up a whole birthday cake that they don't have to share with anybody, you know? He is antagonizing everybody in the room. No offense, you know? Humiliating his son. Also, here to ask for yet another favor, mind you. Like, he's here asking for you to do some shit for me, but still comes in the room, like, on the same bullshit, even though he's here to ask for something. It is, like I said, everything you need, tells you everything you need to know in, like, 4 minutes.
And the acting on Jamie's part, and you guys know, I have said, I don't like Jamie, and I think it's because the actor is too good at it. He's so good that I can't see like he just feels like that is who he is all the time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This scene, he is standing outside. He has not retreated to his little cubby area. He is standing apart from his team.
Yeah.
With his shoulders, he looks like he's 5 years old. The whole way he's standing is like cowed. And also just, it's not just the humiliation of what his father is saying to him. It's this performance in front of everybody, putting their dirty laundry out basically. So now everybody knows, you know, and like, yeah, he told this story in front of everyone, but it's a very different thing from seeing in person what this man is like.
Yep.
And all the teammates, you see them like looking at each other, like nobody really knows what to do. And that I liked, because there are times where I will be like, fucking step in. Why isn't anybody saying anything?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be like that with this, but this is not the time to do it. It really isn't, you know?
Yeah.
But I wanted somebody to do it anyway.
And I'm trying to imagine, like, I can't imagine most of this, but I'm trying to imagine he comes in, because that's the other thing too. One of the things that Jamie told us in season 1 is that his father only ever calls when he wants something. Right? So he's calling to get tickets to this game, and Jamie is trying to blow him off, but his father is being really insistent and texting him and everything. So he gets him tickets, doesn't even get him tickets that are good enough. Like the kind of the great tickets he could have got him, but he got him like tickets. His father shows up. The whole way they entered, like you see him being seated, and they snuck in their own liquor. And they're like leaning into the whole sort of soccer hooliganism. Yeah, is kind of what we're supposed to understand, that his father and his friends are like, that's who they are. And then the way he goes at Jamie in the locker room, he tells him, what does he say when you left for that little? He says ickle too, which I haven't heard since Harry Potter.
I know.
It was really weird to hear somebody say that. And I was like, oh, that sounds like Peeves.
Oh, I love that. It is a Peevesy thing. God, this guy could be a good Peeves if they decided to go in that direction.
Fuck. But he's like, yeah, you left for that little show, and
basically you made a laughingstock of yourself.
Yeah, you did this to yourself, and now look where you are, playing with a bunch of amateurs. Wow, the whole, like, everybody is right there in the room listening to this man. Refer to them all as amateurs.
Yep.
And it's
and
not
when oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, when he starts to ask for the favor, he gets really close to Jamie, and he's doing this like mimed punch thing where it's like, I'm just joshing you, but it's like very aggressive and close. And then when Jamie initially says no, he mimes punching him in the face and is like, oh, it'll only take a second, and does it again. And it's just, I really want to know how much of this was like directed and how much of this was the actor just being like, what would a douchebag abusive piece of shit who's a bully do? I really want to know, because I am fascinated by the development of bits of business like that, and the added like playful, I'm just joking kind of aggression is so good. And Jamie's response to it, I mean, he's flinching, and he's trying really hard to not flinch. He doesn't want to be flinching.
Yep.
But, so this is when he calls him a moody bitch. And Jamie says, don't speak to me like that.
Yep. And it's taking everything he has. Like, it really feels like this might be the first time he's ever said that. Like, it feels like this
for sure like that is what's happening. Yeah. And that dad, what? And puts his ear right up against Jamie's mouth. And he says, don't speak to me like that. Okay. Let's see if you can handle this. And that's when he says the thing with the Ickle TV show. And no offense, amateurs. And he turns around, and Jamie turns around to walk away, because he's basically like, oh, I'm done now. And his dad says, "Don't turn your back on me, you pussy." I think he calls him a pussy. Grabs him by the arm, and Jamie punches him with a boxer punch. That is a real punch. That is a you are going down now. Bye. Good night. And he stands there with this look on his face, I will do it again. Come on. Come at me. I have been waiting my entire life to throw a punch at you, and I finally did it, and I am prepared if we are going to do it again.
It feels like there's a little bit of Jamie that's really surprised that he did it, though.
A little bit.
Shit, I can't believe I just punched my father. Because that's some heavy shit.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that I hear, men that I know, guys that I grew up with that have been friends with. And a lot of them have stories about, having a moment with their dad. Even ones that aren't necessarily from abusive or really toxic relationships. But there's a thing that happens with some boys where they get a little bit older and maybe are testing boundaries or whatever, and they have their first run-in with their father, and it's not always as dramatic as a punch in the face, but a real sort of man-to-man kind of thing, and that it happens with Jamie again. I know it's not the most important thing, but the fact that it happens with an audience, with all your coworkers, this is such a private, family, personal fucking thing. This is your worst nightmare, and it just happened with 13 other people in the room watching.
It's interesting though, because part of me feels like that's what gave him the power to do this. It felt like everybody sees what a piece of shit he is, and the fact that I can feel their incredulity and outrage is helping me really understand this isn't fucking
bad,
normal.
Right.
Yeah, because you get used to shit and you tolerate shit, and then somebody will be like, that's fucked up, right? And you're like, oh, is it? Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah.
So it feels like there's some of that, and also that Jamie's really part of the team now, and there's a sense of there just being unspoken support in the room, that I feel like wouldn't have been felt a year ago or however long ago,
I think it's really the bit about him understanding that the relationship he has with his father is not how other people live.
Yeah.
And being able to see some real life examples of people that he's gotten to know and I guess trust when we talk about building sort of camaraderie around the team, and being you know what? No, everybody's dad doesn't fucking act like this,
Yeah.
I like that idea that the team, even though I can't get over doing this in front of everybody, but also I like what you're saying about them being a source of strength for him in this moment.
Yeah, I think so. Just the fact that everybody is sort of looking at each other too, and they know that they can't step in. This has to be him that deals with it here. I don't know. There's just all of this feels like it's just a perfect storm for him to finally draw a boundary. And it's just really just him saying, "Don't speak to me like that." Honestly, it was bigger for me than the punch. The punch was pure emotion and response to being physically abused. But the "don't speak to me like that" is drawing a boundary that's even more subtle. And a lot of people feel as long as you're not being hit, it's not abuse. And there's something about the fact that he's not only are you not going to hit me, you're going to watch your fucking mouth. And that is even more difficult sometimes to set a boundary about. Yeah. And of course, so Beard, he gets up, tries to come at Jamie again, like a fucking child. Yeah. And Beard tosses him out head first through the doors and then just says, "Oops," which is wonderful. And the whole team is standing there in shock. Yeah. Nobody knows.
Jamie is standing there stunned. Everybody else is just dumbfounded. Nobody knows what to say, what to do. And did you think, when I watched this, I thought it was going to be Ted who walks over with the hug. But
I don't know what I thought. I kind of think I expected the whole team to kind of get up. you know, and it be like, or even Sam, because Sam would suddenly, he was the one that was feeling so threatened by Jamie and had such a good relationship with his father. And maybe he would be like really affected by this, you know? And it's Roy, which if this episode weren't structured the way it is, I don't know that I would buy it. But because what's going on with Roy is all about him realizing the influence he has as a father figure, it feels like he comprehends the depth of the damage here in a way that he might not have really understood. And so there's like, it's a crystallization for him of just how important he is in somebody else's life as like, you know, a model. And the worst parts of that man are what he hated about how Jamie behaved, and seeing it like, oh, that's where it came. Oh my God, you didn't stand a chance, you know? That doesn't make it okay that he was behaving that way, but it suddenly makes it a lot more
Things start
understandable.
making sense.
Yeah.
I really like that it was Roy. This moment like got me. It gets me every time I've seen it, and like I've seen it, you know, dozens of times at this point. But I still tear. I teared up tonight watching it. I like that it was Roy also because I've always thought that Roy and like Jamie occupies a really, you know, he was and is really, you know, a superstar. He's going to be a superstar. He is, you know, this, you know, all of them are professionals, you know, and they're like elite players. But then amongst them, Jamie is something even more special. Like he is, you know, and Roy is retired now, but was also someone like that at one point where, you know, he was like a really big fucking deal. And we know that Roy, even though there's not a lot of talk about Roy's family life, we know that he left to go start this whole like pipeline to professional athlete at a really young age. Yeah. You know? And you just have to kind of imagine that even though we don't know the particulars of Roy's background, he would have an understanding of what it's like to, you know, have an expectation from family, you know, like wanting, needing. Roy is particularly hard, and even though we don't know his background, the fact that he is the way he is suggests some things. Yeah, you know, definitely. And then for the thing that you mentioned, which I feel like has been the road to Roy Kent's been on since season 1, with Ted giving him wrinkle in time, which is just sort of like accepting your leadership role, like leaning into it. And it just feels like a real continuation of that, you know? And then like, again, coupled with this conversation with Phoebe and what's going on with that, it just worked really well for me.
Yeah. And we have Jamie just breaking down on his shoulder and Roy looking like, you get a look at his face while he's holding Jamie, and there's a real sense of him not knowing what to do now. Like, it feels like, I know I did the right thing coming to hug him, and he's breaking down, and I'm going to keep holding him, but God, what the fuck is going on? There's just a sort of like, I get a feeling of sort of mild panic off of him in that moment. There's the way he's like looking around and just, you know, it's a lot of emotion flying around. And this is when Ted leaves the room, and we find out that his father killed himself when he was 16, I think he says. Which I think I guessed.
You did.
Which is like...
You did.
That's not me being smart. I feel like that's just the writing is very good. Yeah, and they did a good job setting that up.
Yeah. He said something, we were talking about... It was a moment with Jamie at the bar, I believe. When Jamie first asked if he can come back to Richmond, and Ted tells him no at first, and they have a conversation about, Jamie asked Ted what his father was like, and he says, my dad was always harder on himself than he was anyone else.
Yeah.
And you said, I think his dad probably killed himself.
Which, like, it feels like kind of a wild conclusion for me to jump to, but also, no, I feel like the writing and the acting, like the way he delivered that line felt like it was a loaded line, you know? So I think that is really on him.
And then, like, right around that time, there started to be a lot of speculation about what happened to Ted's dad. And pretty much everybody was like, yeah, I think his dad killed himself. I think that's what it's going to be. So you want to do Ted?
Back up a little bit?
And then do Ted?
Yeah.
Or where do you want to go next? You want to do Sam and
Let's
Rebecca?
Let's go to Ted and talk about him picking up Dr. Sharon. She gets wheeled in, and he's very solemnly like, it's even worse than I thought. But it's like she gives him this look that I feel like when he says it's even worse than I imagined, I thought he was being serious, but she gives him a look like, will you fucking not? Like, it is a Roy Kent glare that, you know.
And he just like he always does, he does not let that slow him down one little bit.
Not even a drop.
She stands up and he's, oh my God, it's a miracle. And there's a whole little dance he does. He just cannot stop. When she talks to her therapist and she says, he responds with a very specific reference that only a white middle-aged man from the Midwest.
Yep. And he's over here. Is the doc going to be okay, doc? And then asks about subdural hematomas and shit, and how he was always watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy.
She's all very impressed. It's like, oh, and I also, I was a football coach, in America where we have that big problem with concussions.
And a hullabaloo about kneeling and such.
Like, this show just be slipping it in. They just be slipping.
Yeah. So, man, I'm trying to see. Oh, right. This is when she says your husband can take you home.
Oh,
and
Dr. Sharon is like, I beg your fucking pardon. That is a very common TV joke. You see it in sitcoms. Oh, that's not my husband. That's not my, like, I don't know if it's not really something that happens to me often in real life, but I feel like those reactions are not, people don't do that in real life. Do you just go, oh no, that's just my friend, or like, this
I think
exaggerated
usually,
sort of like, oh no, we just work together.
I think usually it's played for, oh, she's going to say that you're together when you're secretly in love with each other and neither of you wants to acknowledge it, so it's made extra awkward because both of you are like desperate for that to be true. But this is a genuine moment of her wanting to distance herself as much as possible from this man. So her immediate, like, no, I felt was much more real, Like, imagine the guy you detest from work who they call your husband. I mean,
I love that he says we're just friends and she says colleagues.
Friendly colleagues. I don't have a husband, but not in a sad way. Jesus Christ. So then she says, I'm perfectly capable of taking myself home. And the doctor is like, you have a head trauma. You're not allowed to leave. You have to have somebody to escort you back. And there ain't no policy like a hospital policy, because a hospital policy don't stop. Truly, sir. Oh my God. So he walks her home and he's playing these like voicemails.
She has left him like 32 voice memos, which this was confusing to me because I don't use this technology, but she says, she's like, how did you know I was even in a hospital? And he's like, oh, well, you left me all these voice memos. So when she gets hit, we see the phone hit the ground and it's like dialing Ted's number, I guess, or like Ted's name is on a screen when it hits the ground. I don't know if it like is like a pocket dial, or if he's calling her at that moment. Like, I don't know.
I don't get it.
And then he talks about the voice memos and then ends up playing some. One of them she's singing.
Tonight.
There's another one,
and they're all just like roasts. All the messages are basically her being like, "Hey, stupid, you ready to stop being a stupid giant baby anymore?" Like,
so I don't know when these happened. Like,
I don't know. I don't get this. I'm glad you don't get it either, because I thought I was missing something really obvious.
And there was and this was confusing again, real time, because some people thought, because we go to her apartment and we see like several empty bottles, and there was like a whole conversation of whether Dr. Sharon is like a secret like alcoholic or whatever. So some people were like, oh, maybe she drunk dials him all the time. But I don't.
Why would that come through all today?
Exactly. Like, why? You know. So I don't know if maybe. And then somebody was like, well, maybe the
concussion,
because she says, I thought those get deleted automatically, and he says, no, I saved them. So I don't understand what's exactly happening. And I was like, well, maybe she's leaving voice memos for herself on her phone, like just. And then they got sent to Ted somehow by accident. But it's all very, very fuzzy and blurry to me. And I do not understand this bit. And if anybody listening wants that, like, to let us know, this is what that means, feel free.
I just really love the idea of her singing. Like, he says that she does the like whole song from West Side Story, but she just replaces lyrics and stuff, and we don't get to hear enough of it. But I want to know the whole thing. I want to know every bit of what she decided to do, because like improvising different lyrics for a thing is one of my favorites. In my just downtime of washing dishes, I'll just start singing a song about my fat cat, and it'll be to the tune of Toxic by Britney Spears, you know? And that was only like for instance, that's not actually a real one, but then I immediately started thinking of the way she does da 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 da, and I'm like, oh, that would be a really good spot to put meow. Meow.
See, the song writes
it's happening. So he comes into her apartment, and I cannot get over this, because he's like, look at how depressing this assigned apartment is, and I'm like, this really nice, very modern apartment with a giant, like, that center island is the size of an autopsy table. You could have a whole human being laid out on that. But what about this apartment is depressing? Really?
Compared to his little place, which is very cozy and cute and quaint, you know.
Sure, but like, I don't feel like this is anything to feel pity or be like, well, I'll just say that it's nice. It is nice. What are you like acting like that's a lie for?
Corporate housing, am I right?
Yes. I don't know.
But I think too, what he's talking about is that she hasn't. I think he's trying to make a comment about how she doesn't seem to have tried to make it hers. You know?
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you can do. Like, she's only there temporary, but she's there for the whole season. That's a significant amount of time. But like, she's not going to redecorate the whole fucking place that they're putting her up in. But it just, you know, he walks in and there's really not much out, you know, except some of these bottles. But she does have some books on the table that he goes over and looks at. But
yeah, he's a little bit too looking.
He's very
leave her shit alone, sir.
Like taking a peek around her place, and she's like desperately trying to usher him out of the door because she's had enough of him and this vulnerability, and that he gets to see her, you know, right now, where she is really exposed, and she's just over it completely.
I don't know, like, between him like looking through her books and stuff and looking at the bottles and going very pointedly, how about you just don't, sir?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what's happening. You don't know if she has any friends, and she's got, you know, or how long those, she might just not clean up frequently, and those are bottles built up from a month and a half, you know,
you're making a lot of assumptions.
Yeah. And you're in her home, and like the idea of just being critical in her home, like, what the fuck? Stop.
Yeah. She doesn't want you there. And she was clearly, when you got to the door, she was expecting you to like not even cross the threshold in a real way. But here you are insisting that you're going to bring the bike all the way into the apartment, and now she's got to offer you something to drink. She gets that glass of water. It It goes on and on and on.
Chugs it. Very methodical, like it's a metronome, that chug.
And it's like she just wants him out.
Yep. It's wild to me how little he cares that she wants him out. Like I would just be out of there so fast. And the fact that he seems to kind of enjoy pressing her buttons. Does he feel like after all the messages that he got from her, maybe he has like a little bit more license to be pushy? Is that part of it, you think?
I don't think so. I think it's weird. I think that he is treating this moment of having come to her rescue as a game changer, right? This changes our entire dynamic. Like we are no longer just Coach and Doc or my therapist and me. Now we have something else going on here, and like it's just automatic without saying. Like that's just what our relationship is now, and behaving as if that's a thing that she's agreed to and that she's comfortable with, you know. So he's just like pushing. She has these boundaries, and he's just like, "Oh no, those don't count anymore because now we've had this experience together. So those boundaries don't apply to me anymore." You know, and she has to keep being like, "No, actually, they do though." And also, again, she's really uncomfortable being in this position where she's been exposed.
Yeah,
you know, she was hurt. She didn't expect him to show up. Now he's in her fucking house, sees how she lives. Like, that's not how this dynamic which they have is supposed to be. You know, so it's really awkward for both of them, I think. And they're both leaning into their behaviors. You know, she's like desperately trying to build those walls back up. And he is doing his Ted thing, which is aggressively trying to tear those walls down.
Would you like a cup of tea? Oh God, no. Sorry, but no, I don't like that garbage. But yeah, she closes the door behind him, and he had said something about like, "Are you gonna miss riding your bike, or are you gonna wanna maybe stay away from it for a little while?" And we find out later he like got her a new bike.
Yeah. And
she says it was unnecessary. And I'm like, I don't know how much to believe that. Because on the one hand, I don't know if her bike was like totaled. I'll assume it was. But even if it were, and she did need a new bike, him getting her one is a bridge too far.
Oh, you think so?
I think so. Like, if it would be one thing if he was the one who hit her. And he got a new bike, you know, like...
That would be a whole different show.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if that's what happened?
Oh my God. But him buying her a new bike without even asking her, I mean, if the bike is something that's so personal for her and her happy place, I would want to pick it out myself. It would be very important to me to choose something new, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And for him to just, like, do this, I don't know, it'd just be...
It's presumptuous.
It would be a little presumptuous. There you go. That's a good word.
Yeah. I was surprised she doesn't say she's going to give it back, or, you know, she says this is unnecessary, but thanks him. And it seems like she's going to keep it. And I thought for sure she was going to be like, you have to come get this, or I'm going to bring it to you. You know, I can't accept this or whatever, but she doesn't. She takes it.
Yeah.
So I was surprised by that.
And she tells him finally, I was scared because bike riding is my happy place. Yeah. And I was worried that I wasn't ever going to want to get out there and ride my bike again, which is a very reasonable fear to have. I mean, riding your bike in and amongst cars has always been something that I wish I had the courage to do, because I know it's good for you. It's like the most efficient mode of travel, like in terms of output of energy versus distance traveled. And it's just like, when you live in a city, especially, a really smart way to get around easily. And I wanted so much to be a bike rider in Philly, and I couldn't get around the fear of being on the street with people. you can't ride on sidewalks. It's not allowed. And even if it were allowed, it's like
they're all on the sidewalks now. They all ride on the sidewalks. It's a fucking nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's a literal nightmare.
That's what you get when you don't make bike lanes and you've like designed a city in such a way that there's cars or bodies, and those are the two options.
There's a new influx of people who do like DoorDash and Caviar and all those deliveries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it used to be you would have a restaurant that had like a designated delivery guy, and that guy knew what he was doing, and he used to use the bike, and he knew how to ride a bike. Right. Now there are people who don't, but they do delivery, so they all have those little baskets attached to the back of their bike, but they're scared to ride in traffic, so they all are on the sidewalks now, all downtown.
See,
and then they have those goddamn bikes that you can rent. The city bikes that you can rent.
I remember
and those motherfuckers be on the sidewalk too. Everything is going. It's all going to hell.
See, this is why I didn't do. I bought a bike when I was down there, and I souped it up, made it real cute, whole thing, and I rode it like 3 times. And one of the times I got super lost, and I wound up like riding like 30 miles before I finally like got home. And I kind of never went out on it again. It was like the last straw.
That'll do it. It's got to the scene of the locker room now at Jamie's dad. The episode's been playing in the background, and like I have to stop it because I'll just stop and like stare at the screen. So good.
It is mesmerizing.
So it's so good.
So I feel like now we can jump ahead to Ted calling her, because we really don't get much of him in the middle here until the scene with Jamie.
There's Ted calling to check up on her a couple times, doing the funny voices, which I was here for. It's does that? I think it's like a Kermit voice he does at first, and it's just like very, very good.
And she laughs in response, and he's just like, he says, "That's what it sounds like when you laugh."
And the bit that you mentioned about her admitting that she was afraid, to get on her bike, I love that because she had said in the apartment when he asked her, I'm a therapist, I'm a professional. My whole job is like teaching people how to confront their fears. I'll be fine,
Yep.
And so it's this 180 that she does. And again, like, I feel like what her therapist had told her is also running around in her head,
Definitely.
And she decides to take a leap and sort of be brave and open up to Ted in that way.
Heard that as take a leak. It took me a second to understand what you actually said, and I was like, "She what? Oh,
that's a different show that can also bring her closer to Ted Lasso, but God. I don't know what he's into.
No, I'm not. No, we're not doing that.
Little golden showers between friends.
I'm gonna mute you.
So
when he calls her, she answers and immediately is respond. She thinks he's calling to check up on her, and answers like kind of proactively, jumping ahead of him speaking.
Yeah.
And says about the bike and everything, and then he doesn't respond, and she can hear him like breathing and sort of sniffing, and is like, Ted? And he says, my father killed himself when I was 16.
That happened to me. That happened to my mom.
Yeah. I like that line a lot. Like,
that happened to me. It feels like, yeah, I'm admitting that shit happened. I'm saying it out loud. That's something that fucking happened.
Yeah.
I've been like pretending like it didn't happen. Yeah. Like Jamie saying, don't talk to me like that. Like saying
there's something
it out loud.
about it that's like centering him and his mother too, where I feel like it could easily have been like, my father killed himself. He was going through some stuff, and it would have been about his dad. And instead, it's immediately, we had to go through this thing.
Yep.
And I appreciate that because, yes, like I understand the urge to sort of focus on the person who's gone and why they made the choice that they did. But when it comes down to it, the effect that it had on you is the only thing that matters anymore. What the reasons behind their choice, what's done is done. And that isn't actually a factor. All that's left is the result of what it has done to you.
Yep.
And you can see her having this moment of like, oh, like she just says, "I'm sorry, Ted," but there's a real sense here of her being a little bit startled at the intensity of the information and how revealing he's being all of a sudden.
Hang on 1 second. You can't hear us at all, Chris?
No, he's talking about in the chat. Nobody else is talking in the chat.
Oh, I thought he meant...
Because there's nobody else here right now.
I think it's just you.
Yeah. I think it is tonight. Usually we've got more people here.
Yeah. I thought for a second it was like an audio problem. I didn't know if it was going to be like, a thing or not. Okay.
Let me just mark this down to cut it. Hold on.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, I just think that after him putting this like constant wall of positivity up so much, having him call, especially considering he has been using what happened to her as a kind of excuse to try and push boundaries, the call being about him and him letting a wall down was just really unexpected.
I love, and I fully believe, whether the show meant it or not, I think they did, but whatever. I have decided that it is when she tells Ted about being afraid, and Ted starts to do his shtick. Mm-hmm. And she says, no, you don't have to say anything. I don't need a pep talk. I just, wanted to tell you. I just wanted to say it.
I do really want to know what makes fear like underwear, though. I'm not going to lie to you. He never gets to finish, and I was like, what, though? Why is it?
Of all the things that Ted has started to say but never been a chance to really finish, because there's a million of them. That's like a running joke, right? We still haven't heard the whole story about why he wore pajamas to the prom, But we haven't heard the end of why The Fountainhead is his favorite book. But this bit, you're like, tell me more, sir.
Fear is a lot like underwear. What is it? I'm gonna Google this. Is it safe to Google it?
I don't think it ever.
I don't know
like
if you get like a solution later. I love it. I typed fear is, and Google is like a lot like underwear. Is that what you wanted to know?
I love
and if you don't change it, you have to sit in your mess.
Oh. So Ted is just stealing other people's lines? Is that what I'm understanding?
It doesn't, like, I'm trying to find out like where they got it, because this is under Ted Lasso. Oh.
Because I was concerned it might take you somewhere where there might be spoilers. I didn't know if it was like what you found was the Ted Lasso quote, or whether it was just a saying that existed out in the world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So be careful as you're Googling.
All right. I'm gonna bounce out of there. There were no spoilers that I could see. It looked like it was just a Reddit thread of people guessing what the answer was. So there was like a lot of
gotcha.
Like, this is what he was gonna say, and it was actually pretty fun. But yeah, I might stumble on a little spoiler in there. So I have to save all those goodies for later. But yeah, and he says like, I don't know if that's where a lot of my issues stem from. It's just like, it definitely is. And that makes sense.
But it's so wild, right? To say that out loud. My father committed suicide when I was 16. And I don't know, maybe that's where some of my, like, the disconnect.
Yeah.
This is someone, and we already know he didn't have any therapy around this, right? We know the only therapy he's had was couples counseling that he's admitted to anyway. Mm-hmm. So I feel comfortable making the assumption that there was no therapy for Ted around losing his father in this fashion.
Yeah.
And I just can't even.
Yeah.
Just like, no wonder he's a fucking mess.
Indeed. And this is something that came up in my memories recently, and I don't remember if I shared it again, but there was a comment from a Facebook thread, and it was so like the impact it made when I read it. I like copied it and I just blanked their name out and shared it as its own post, because it was in response to a post about the importance of like content and trigger warnings, and how many people act like if you request those, you're being precious and self-indulgent and thin-skinned, and
you
all
want
of these
everybody
things
to accommodate you and bend over backwards for you. You're so selfish and self-centered, and everything's not about you.
And the comment was about how the people who react this way are often people who went through, not only personally, but in terms of like, if we're talking about boomers, there is such a like imprint of time along with it, and the amount of trauma that people sustained, and how therapy was not a thing, and you know, you weren't in large part allowed or supposed to talk about things, and you were expected to keep functioning as everyone else, that there is this like kind of bitterness that a generation is here that has decided to draw a line in the sand and say, no, we don't agree to being treated like that. Maybe you let yourself be treated like that because everybody made you feel like you weren't allowed to demand more than that. But we collectively are going to begin to demand more than that. And I'm sorry that you didn't get that, because that sucks. And it's not okay that you were treated this way either. And there was something like so compassionate about the viewpoint that they took, just a group of traumatized people who have never been allowed to express that they were, you know, and how like if you press a little bit, the comment ended with her talking about how her daughter has a learning disability, and her father was saying something about how, well, she just needs to like get over it and figure it out. And instead of flaring up, which would be my instinct, she asked him, why do you feel that way when they have accommodations? And then he began to share about how he had a learning disability and was simply expected to get over it and do what he needed to do anyway. And once he started to talk about it, got really emotional. And it was just him putting on her the expectations that were laid out for him. And it wasn't until she directly drew that line that he began to see he was just treating her in a way that had hurt him. And why would he do that? And it really, like, it was a bit of a moment with her and her father as he realized, I'm just perpetuating this thing.
Right.
But it's like people who paid back their own student loans not wanting anybody else to get their relief because I did it, so you should also have to, because for some reason you are indebted to my experience, which is a weird way to live.
And a weird sort of, it's unfair that a bad thing happened to me and now you're getting an out.
Exactly.
It's not fair. And you know what? It is unfair that a bad thing happened to you.
Yeah.
But this weird insistence that everyone else should suffer the same fate because you suffered it is it's nonsense. And we don't ascribe that thinking to everything. We're very picky about what circumstances we pick and choose, you know?
Yeah.
And it tends to, like, I don't want to spend too much time on a podcast, but when you start thinking about how people react and what triggers that reaction, it always seems to me like it comes when it's about accommodating someone else's struggles in a way that they weren't able to be accommodated.
Yes.
Or any type of help or assistance. Anytime you're helping someone, whether you are helping them with mental health or helping them with student loans, anytime you're helping a group and you didn't get that help yourself, your bitterness at not getting that help just gets redirected to the new group instead of doing the work that sounds like this woman and her father did. But who has time to fucking sit every fucking person down and make them do this labor so that they can draw the line from A to B? Because it's not that fucking complicated, but a lot of people just don't see it for whatever reason.
It's an automatic reaction because they've taught themselves that what they were made to do was fair, actually. And they don't want they start accepting the lie that was told to them because if there's no way out of it, the best that you can hope to do to reconcile yourself to the shit that you just found yourself in is to somehow trick yourself into thinking you agreed to it. You know, or that it didn't damage you. When you hear like people who were beat as children say, "Well, I turned out fine." No, you think it's okay to hit children? You did not turn out fine.
You absolutely did not turn out fine. But the alternative is to admit that your parents thought it was okay to beat you, and that shit is hard to accept and you know integrate into who you are as a person. So then you end up telling yourself, "Oh, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't a big deal. It was good for me. It made me a better person." You know, whatever lies we tell ourselves to justify to that dissonance. You know.
Yeah,
we're a whole mess. We're oh my god,
such a mess. And again, like you can draw these lines between things, and it's so clear. But somebody has to like lead the way and make you stop and ask why you're responding this way. And that's what therapy is about. It's not just somebody telling you your parents screwed you up. It's just, hey, see how you reacted here? Don't you think that's interesting? What's that about? Like, and just asking yourself, oh yeah, what is that about? Because I'll tell you what, I have just grown so much more aware of my reactions and the feelings that will come up in a moment that I'm like, whoa, I got really mad. Why am I so mad over this? And it's really startling once you start to ask yourself, where is this coming from? How utterly unrelated your anger is to the thing you're actually like saying you're angry about. It's so often like not even close part of it. Yeah.
Yep. What do you think, like when you find out that what happened to Ted's father, right? Like some of his behaviors start to make sense.
Yeah.
Or do they? Or I guess better stated would be asking you, do his behaviors start to make sense once you get this context? Because you can go either way, you know. His whole obsession with not being a quitter hits different now, right?
Yeah, and feeling like you want to coach, it's him wanting to be there and be a father figure for a bunch of other people. Like he's attempting to fill shoes, you know.
And when he fails in that mission that he's given himself, you know, he starts to not be feeling great.
Yeah, like his son getting the call that he, you know, needed help and he's not there for him. And it's just like clearly yikes.
And then quickly his whole sort of obsessively positive nature.
Yeah.
Right? Is sort of the antidote of whatever, you know, we don't know exactly what his dad's whole deal was, but we can sort of make some assumptions. And maybe being perpetually happy and positive is like the antidote to whatever darkness took over his father, you know?
Yeah. Or if I had been more like this when he was alive, maybe he wouldn't have.
Right. You know? Could be that as well. Yeah. You know, so for Ted, is there anything else before we jump?
Pretty much it's just like Beard coming up to him outside and him saying like he's going to go back and be with the team. But
bird by bird, and then Beard actually flips him the bird.
What was bird by? What is that he even says?
That is there's a whole fucking thing with that I'm not familiar with, but I looked it up when I first watched. I'm pretty sure it is a book that both Beard is reading. I think it's a book that they both read. I think it's a real book actually, but it's some sort of like I don't want to call it self-help, but like, I don't know, mentorship,
Inspirational?
how to be a leader, like,
Gotcha.
kind of philosophy,
Motivational?
or whatever, motivational kind of deal.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's along those lines, and it's something that they've said to each other that Ted has said before, over the course
has
of the
he?
show. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Okay.
Yeah. It's like one of the little things that, like, he'll say to Beard. They have all those little, fucking shorthand things that they say back and forth. It's one of those. But
and he seems to be a little bit worried about Beard. Like maybe Beard has had a problem with drinking and he's going out by himself in a mood, and Ted is concerned about it. Reminds him that they have a real early day the next day. Kind of, it just feels like, very like solicitous.
Yeah, like just don't go crazy. I also, real quick, Ted's confession. He tells the coaches about the panic attack, and he finally talks to them about it, and then inspires all of them to confess something.
I really enjoyed this. So we have this one's the worst one by far, but we have Higgins confessing that there was like the time difference caused them to lose out on like a potentially amazing Brazilian player, which as somebody who records with people in different time zones, this is a real problem.
This is a real struggle.
Trying to figure it out. And especially like, me and Miles, he's in Arizona, which doesn't observe daylight savings. So
Arizona
is always all over the place.
Like, I don't even know what they're doing over there. The whole
Wild West.
state it really is. The whole fucking state is banana pancakes. Like, again, we're on a time thing. We're not even going to talk about what their fucking senator pulled, But yeah, Arizona also like refused to. Is it Arizona or Arkansas? Pretty sure it's Arizona because Public Enemy had that song. Somebody had that song. They refused to celebrate Martin Luther King Day. It was like not a holiday there for like.
Right. Okay.
It's also the same state that had that fucking giant tent city, Maricopa, that big prison that finally got shut down.
Oh my God. I forgot all about that whole thing.
Arizona is a wild, wild place.
What the fuck?
Like, and I know so many people that live there, and I just don't understand why. Like, what are y'all doing? Why are you living?
I don't understand why I live where I live. We all have our fucking.
That's true. That's true.
God. But yeah, so that's Higgins' thing, and then Roy confesses that the reports that they write, he never reads.
Scouting reports.
They're boring, and I won't do it. And then
I love his confession is more of just like letting you know where I'm at with shit.
Yeah, apparently, like every time they've had meetings and it's been brought up, he like has pretended to know what they're talking about, and he's like, "Y'all should just know to not involve me in those conversations henceforth." Right. So then we get, I think actually the next one, oh no, it is Nate. And he says that he pretends to come up with ideas in the moment and that they're spontaneous when really it's something that he's been thinking about for months. And he just acts like it's a sudden occurrence. Yeah. And I do appreciate everybody. Yeah, everybody is like, that's not terrible, actually.
That's actually pretty good. The illusion of spontaneity.
And then Beard was on mushrooms.
Beard. I love
by accident.
Exactly what game it was.
Yeah, Roy is like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember that day. Yeah, I wonder what the fuck was going on.
Nate is like, by accident. And he drank the wrong pitcher of tea at Jane's house.
Pot and pitcher, ma'am. This is not the South, and it was not sweet tea. It is a pot.
It is a pot
of tea.
Of tea. That's right. You know what's funny? Like in my head. Well, never mind. I'll tell you all that story some other time. So as they're leaving the room, Ted is like, "Oh, so you're drinking tea now?"
What a betrayal! I didn't know how to tell you. I like that because look, if there is something that's like a huge thing around you and you have one person that you can commiserate on what bullshit it is, and then you find out they're part of the thing now. Yeah, that's fucked up.
Now you're like one of those people that are just like, I didn't, why should you get to enjoy tea?
Oh, you're one of them now. Okay. But yeah, that was a good moment for everybody to like get motivated to confess things.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And again, it was just like, I love your little intro when you talk about this episode being called Man City, because it just would give all these moments throughout the episode of watching these men deal with difficult shit and also have like really beautiful moments. And one of the things that I really, really love about the show is the portrayal of the relationships between the men and what it could be like when you start removing some of the toxicity that can be associated with masculinity. When you start removing some of those things, so you have these wonderful moments of like intimacy and vulnerability that are not just played for laughs. They're like, there's funny jokes and then it's a comedy, but the moments to me feel real.
Yeah. Definitely.
I love the barber scene. It's so fucking fantastic.
Well, I want to touch on Roy's thing and then we'll go over to Sam.
Okay.
Because we pretty much have talked about Roy's thing already, but he gets brought in because Phoebe has been given a couple of warnings and she's being sent home early today, so it's gotten quite serious, for swearing. And I really get the feeling that this teacher has the hots for Roy. There is a whole vibe, and I'm not mad at her for that.
She keeps showing up, doesn't she? He spends a lot of time with Phoebe.
Mm-hmm.
But she was there when he was coaching. She was around, and she's
just got this look when she's like watching him leave the room, and how could you not? Literally, like, the man looks how he looks and is how he is with a child, and it is just too much.
It is hard to not be into it.
I love when she's like, where do you think she's getting that from? And he's like, how should I fucking know? And she just has to look at him for a second. Like,
he's
just very gently
like, oh, wait, me? Like,
she just sort of raises her eyebrows, doesn't actually say anything, because, like, I'm not going to waste my breath stating the incredibly obvious.
He is, like, 100% not aware that he is the problem here. Like, he thinks she's about to name, I don't know, some kid down the hall or whatever that he was been eating lunch with.
When I hear that animal is quite a bad influence.
I was going to say, I wish I understood more about why people hate that. But I remember, like, parents being like, I'm not letting my kid watch that anymore. It's my kid's acting up now.
Yeah, I think she's got a little bit of an attitude or something.
She got like a little Woody Woodpecker energy happening.
I don't know. But that's like the vibe I get.
Yeah, I get it. You guys know I wasn't allowed to watch Woody Woodpecker for the very same reasons. Bad influence.
My mother would always like chime in when she saw a kid that was like being put in a position where they're supposed to be like the cute or precocious one, but they're really like in Home Alone. At one point, Kevin says, "I am upstairs, dummy," to his mom. And my mom literally turned to me and said, "If you ever speak to me that way." And I remember that still to this day, her just immediately being like, "Don't you dare think that's fucking cute." Because
right. No. I love that about your mom.
She was very like, when I hear about the way that Black parents are with their like children having to fucking act right, my mom was very much like that. Really I would go to friends' houses and see the way they talk to their mothers and be like utterly scandalized. Yeah,
I love that. This is the energy we want to see.
Just genuinely like, one, not only I can't believe they don't like grab you by the hair and like throw you in a closet for this. Not that my mom did that, but like I would feel like it was justified because they were being such a brat.
It wasn't off the table. Right? Like she could surprise you anytime.
But also that you are feeling cool to act like this to your parent in front of me, which like I find it embarrassed. Like I'm embarrassed for you. Yeah. And I like grew up a little and realized they were showing off, like they thought they were making themselves look cool, but I never saw it as cool. I was just like, oh, you're kind of trashy, huh? Was the way that I took it.
I always took it as like, you can get us both fucked up. What are you doing? Because I thought that was what was going to happen, is that the parent was going to like turn around and act like my mom would act in that moment. So I would always be like, yo, not while I'm here. Don't do that shit while I'm here. Do that shit when I leave.
Nothing like a friend getting punished while you're visiting. The worst.
Bitch, now I'm on punishment with you.
Yep.
I could have stayed home. That used to happen to me and one girl all the time. She did not know how to act when she had She did not know how to act. Ugh. We're still
I feel like we talked about this before. Okay, we gotta focus. We gotta focus.
Okay. All right.
Sorry. But anyway, so yeah, eventually she's like, look, you know what kind of influence you have over her. And she asks about Phoebe's dad, and he says he's a piece of shit. And she says, is he alive? Yes, he's a living piece of shit. But we don't get any further information. So he's the father in her life, really, for all intents and purposes. And I just thought of how much I hate when people say all intensive purposes.
All
intents and purposes.
All intensive purposes. Like, if you're gonna get it wrong, you gotta get them both wrong.
But if he agrees to talk to her, and I love he gets up and leaves, and she has a moment of watching him, and then she looks down and realizes she has glitter all over her hands.
She's like, fucking glitter.
It's a really nice combo of getting her to swear and it be a very teachery thing that she's like annoyed by. And he has a conversation with Phoebe that gets so emotional. Oh my God.
It's so good. I was not expecting any of this when I first saw this episode. Like, I don't know what I thought, but I didn't expect this conversation between him and this little girl to be anything that could be that moving. And I was just mistaken. I was just wrong.
Yeah, it's a weird, like, because he's finding out how much influence he really has, because I think he hadn't quite seen it. And also he expresses to her his fear that he describes it as, I worry that I am infecting you with the worst parts of myself, which is a beautiful way to phrase that. Yep. And her saying, I'm standing up to bullies because of you. And like, yeah, she's swearing and she shouldn't do that. And she says, I can stand up to bullies without swearing. But he is teaching her valuable morality that's like still solid. And as somebody who has like only recently with Owen's family realized the kind of influence that I had with his sort of nieces, cousin, whatever you want to call them, it's really humbling as an adult to find out the kind of power that you have in a kid's life and you don't realize it, you know? And he spends so much time with her and cares about her so much. And her telling him in words how much he means to her and how much he has taught her. It's just
what did she says, you give me the best parts of you or something. And it is just like, again, the show does this all the time. And I think we've mentioned it just about every time, at least once an episode, where we say the show does something that really could be kind of corny, like a little too saccharine, like you should be rolling your eyes, but somehow it works.
Yes.
You know, and this is another and I also, like you guys know, I'm not a huge fan of like kid actors. I find them a lot of time to be sort of grating.
Very tricky.
Like, you know, like it's just a real hit or miss with me. Most of the times it's a big miss. I really adore Phoebe. I just do. I think she's a really, really fun character, especially given her age. And then the fact that they have her teamed up with Roy, it's like a perfect little, like a foil for his character. And it just works really well, you know? But yeah, when she tells him that, like, again, a bitch was teary-eyed. I just love it so much. I just love it. It's just, again, beautiful.
They make it, she says something about how we could quit swearing together, and he just says, fuck you.
Fuck. That's also what I love, because we're telling like small children to their face, fuck you. And I'm always going to be a fan of that.
And I really thought they might do that. Like, we're both going to try and pare down on our swearing. Like, it's a flaw that he also needs to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I just have a problem with interpreting swearing as an inherent flaw, as you all well know.
The only thing, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
I just say the only thing I didn't like is when he's expressing to her how swearing is going to hold her back.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, I mean, like, it's valid, you know,
mm-hmm.
because I guess you could, you know, get in trouble at school so much that you have poor grades, and next thing you know, you can't like achieve your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the only thing I was just like, yeah. But then he got really sidetracked and distracted by her desire to be a veterinarian for wild animals.
For wild animals.
Yeah. Like, how is that
she wants to work in
work?
animal control, sir. That's what that is. It's going to be mostly possums.
Work? Who's going to pay you? And then he has to tell himself, never mind.
But yeah, like, I understand you're feeling kind of like about it, but it is true if the swearing is starting this young, I feel.
Yeah.
It's one thing for you to embrace swearing as an adult once you're like, but as a kid at this point, it will be a problem.
Yeah. And he tells her that he can get away with it because he's a footballer, and there's
it's expected, even encouraged.
I was hoping that she would say, all right, well, I want to be a footballer too then.
So we have to now talk about Rebecca and Sam. This was oh boy, we're on such shaky ground here. Because I love them together, but also the problem isn't not there, you know?
Yeah.
And
so,
boy.
So tell me, as you were watching, I love she's in the car and she calls Keely for like moral support. No, Keely calls her, I think. And Rebecca's just like sitting in the car.
Keely's got that mask on her face and really looks scary for a second. I'm like, oh my
Rebecca's
God.
Like, even Rebecca was like, whoo. But
yeah,
like,
he like had made a date, and this is something I really like, is that he doesn't wait for her to reply. He just says, I'm going to be at this place at this time, and just makes the plan, which like right there is just so few dudes make the plan. They want us to figure everything out, you know? And so immediately I'm just like, nice. And then it's her deciding if she's going to go, and she finally says she's going to go. And when Sam gets that message in front of everybody,
the 3 dots, it's the best.
And
oh, it's so good.
Then he says, Isaac, I'd like a haircut.
Are you
and
sure?
It's a whole thing because apparently Isaac's some sort of haircutting prodigy.
This is so beautiful. I love it so much. I love the I mean, it's a different, like, I love the, like, because there's a whole thing with like barbershops and for men, especially black men. I'm not sure what white guys do in barbershops or if they even call them barbershops.
They're awkward.
But you know, but it's very a very like, you know, like sort of sacred communal space where like men can go and sort of be around each other and have that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so that they like incorporated some of that, but they also opened it up for the whole team. I love how respectful everybody is of the haircut. Like,
except for fucking Hans
it's
or whatever.
Jan Moss. Everybody is just like, "Oh, you're gonna use your." One guy is like saving it for his wedding. You know, like it's a big
or
deal.
My circumcision. That's Danny.
That's right. So I love that. I love how much joy is on everyone's face as they're watching him cut. Even though Isaac is like showboating and being like a little bit ridiculous. But I love how like into it everybody is. Just like there's so much joy, and I don't know, it just
the camaraderie.
It was so beautiful, and like nobody. A lot of times it feels like when men are with each other, they don't get to just be. You know, like they don't get to be authentic because they're always like performing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it feels like anyway. And it's something, even though this is literally people performing, but what they're performing feels like men just being like together, like not worried about who is the alpha, or like not worried about appearing soft, or just like all of that bullshit. It's just so fit. It's so beautiful. I loved it so much. And Sam's haircut really did look good.
Yeah, I like later the announcers are like, they may have lost horribly, but his hair looks amazing.
Even Rebecca says his hair looks good when she sees him at the restaurant before they realized, what's going on.
So she shows up, and it takes a bit before they realize. He sends her a message about where he is, and hears it arrive on her phone, and she almost immediately grabs her shit and is about to sprint out the door.
When she says, "I've been grooming you."
Yep. I really and this is the thing. Because of the fact that they didn't know who each other was, there is a purity to their conversation that is real.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was not what was happening. Because grooming happens when you are aware of the power dynamic and you are taking advantage of that.
Right.
That said, the optics of this woman dating someone, he is 21.
He's even younger than I realized. 21.
She
said she
lost
calls herself
my
a pedophile.
mind. Yes. Look, I don't know how old Rebecca's supposed to be. I don't think they ever specifically say her
I don't
age.
think so.
But I am 38 years old, and I would never even consider in my wildest dreams dating a 21-year-old. It's absolutely off the table, no question.
I think Rebecca's
never
supposed to
ever. Yeah.
Right.
I'm thinking she's 48. Putting her around. Maybe.
She might be. I think her character might be a little bit younger than that.
She, as an actress, I'm putting her at 55. But usually actresses play younger characters than they are.
I don't think she's that old.
You don't think so?
I don't think
What's her name again? The actress?
Is it Washington? Hannah Waddington? Waddington?
I don't know. I'm just gonna, let's see. Hannah Waddingham.
Oh, it's Ham, not Ton. I was close.
Yeah. Hannah Waddingham, age 48.
There you go. That's
so
she's my age. She's my
I think
age.
that she looks older than you.
Well,
I mean, she's absolutely gorgeous, but yeah, right.
No shade. I mean, she's fucking stunning. Her body is banging. She's like 7 feet tall. Like, I would kill for anything that she's got going on. But
True.
Yeah, she definitely looks way older than me.
But her date, it's just the fact that she's his boss. And I also really feel like the fact that she is a white woman and he is a black man, and that power dynamic combined with her being his boss and the age difference, all of it optically is bad.
And she is aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
She is hyper aware of it. And then, it didn't come up in this moment, but you and I talked about it when we were theorizing, what if it's Sam, what could the obstacles be? Who is going to be pushing against it? And it turned out to be her. I think you guessed it would be her as well.
Yeah.
And you and I had a conversation about how, for Rupert, who's new Rebecca or whatever, is she's not as young as 21,
Rebecca.
but she's fucking young, She's in her 20s, whatever she is. She's in her 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And Rupert didn't think twice about it. It's expected, Now, granted, it's a little bit different because Sam's actually an employee of Rebecca.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the age difference and the power dynamic, and Rebecca is aware that she doesn't have that luxury, that the rules simply are not the same. And she has to worry about the optics in a way that Rupert does not, and men like Rupert don't have to.
Yeah. And I think that, they wind up, he convinces her to stay just for dinner.
I love that we don't
clearly is an amazing date,
but we like the way it's done. We're not in the date, but we're watching it, and it is they are having the time of their life. It's so good. She's laughing in a way we really haven't seen her, right?
Very much
yet.
so. Yeah,
she's
loose,
sort of loose, flirty. Really having a good time. And you remember what Sassy had said, about when we all get to meet the real Rebecca. What she's going to be like. and it felt very much like this was just sort of an extension of like getting to see what that Rebecca is like. We've been seeing her through the season, be very different than she was in season 1, but
and they go to her, like he drops her off at home, and there's a moment where they kiss, but she tells him never again.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's such a lie.
There's like it? You didn't believe
not
it?
for a moment. There's way too much chemistry when they kiss, and I gotta say, Sam, who feels like such a total sweet cinnamon roll, is very good at transitioning to sexy.
Yeah.
Because there are some moments where he like looks at her and is like lean, and I was just like, whoa,
and I was like,
man.
Hey now, yeah.
It's,
and I hadn't thought of him like that at all.
Smolder.
Like through like
Sam.
Okay, I was was curious if you had ever had a moment where you're like, oh shit.
He's
Sam.
very cute, but he's not. He never tries to put that on. So the fact that he is doing it with her, it just feels very special.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is a side of him that we have never seen before, because he doesn't do this unless he's feeling it. So when they lose the game, he does this interview, and he says how we tried, and the main thing is to try, because it's really easy to not, because you're afraid, and even if it goes badly, at least you gave it a shot. And she's listening, and it's like, fucking Christ. So she texts him, what is he doing? And he says, this is my address.
All
and
he does is answers with her address.
Just the address.
Just the address. That shit is got real big dick energy.
Very much so.
She says, are you around? And he answers with an address.
Mm-hmm.
And the way she goes running.
She goes literally running. Scooping up her shoes, and like, she's running out with no shoes on. I think she's just planning to put them on in the cab or whatever.
Yep.
And he's right there at her door waiting. And I was just like, this man, oh my God, how are you going to have that kind of confidence? Like, that is just truly a level. And if it were anybody else acting like this, I would be like, okay, get the fuck out of here. But Sam has never been like this. So it's just, oh, okay.
When the way he is standing outside, like the confidence of like, I knew you were coming. I knew that this was where we were going to end up.
And she says, why'd you give me my address? And he says, for next time.
Bitch, panties dropped, procrastination.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And Chris Goodnight, who's in the chat right now, ages ago asked us what we thought, well, me, because what Nora would think about this. And we kept intending to answer and fucking getting sidetracked because we always run out of time. And I gotta be honest, it didn't really like enter my head that she would have a problem with it. And I'm not sure, like, I feel like part of her, she'll certainly be jealous. Like, there's no way to not be, even if it's a good-natured jealous, you're still going to be like, God damn, And also, like, Nora is closer to his age than she is.
Right. Even though she's also a literal child.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I also could see her, like, weirdly living vicariously through Rebecca and just kind of wanting to know everything in a sort of voyeuristic way that might get a little uncomfortable, and Rebecca's be like, I'm just not going to tell you that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that it doesn't turn into a thing, because Nora seems very like solid, like she's a sensible person. So I don't feel like she's going to be a dick about it. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, she also, I think, knew that Rupert was a piece of shit. So I can only imagine that she might be like, well, that's a fucking step up.
Step up,
sure.
right?
So,
yeah. It's hard to guess because, at that age, 13, everything is so like heightened and, you know what I mean? So it's really hard to say like which way it would go. It could really go either way.
Yeah.
Teenage girls at that age,
Yep.
So they're gonna smash, and Sam and Rebecca, which is fucking, there's a whole like Cheers.
Oh,
Right?
God. Oh, I hate that. I didn't even think of that. Especially since Kirstie Alley just died.
Fuck
I don't
her.
especially don't like her. Yeah.
Fuck
her.
She sucks. Fuck her.
She sucks, and the character of Rebecca on Cheers is terrible.
Listen, that does not stand up on a rewatch. The Rebecca
not at
character.
all.
What they had her do, how she was treated, it is not a good look. That is those later years of Cheers. It is unfortunate. And we are a big Cheers family here. Steve loves Cheers.
It's so much fun, but God, there are really some
there's some things.
Yeah.
A lot of it, especially around the women.
Yeah.
Is just real fucking unfortunate. But all right, so rounding up loose ends.
I don't really. The only thing I want to do is say hi to new patrons. I feel like we talked about the episode pretty much.
Yeah, I think we got everything. It's weird. Whenever we do it out of order, I'm always a little like, oh shit, what did we miss? What did we miss?
Chances are, because this is so like the plot lines get carried through, if we miss something, we can talk about it the next time. But it is the time issue. So, you know.
All right, folks.
All right. So this week we only have one, but welcome to Gyodi Olek.
Welcome. Yay.
I hope I said your name correctly. Welcome. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. Appreciate you a great deal. And yeah, Rashawn and I had to move for those of you who are at the level of getting a, first of all, postcard. I am super late sending those out. I've had them. Like, usually it's just that it took forever for them to ship. No, this time it's my fault. But puppies, please bear with me, everybody. It has been an all-consuming thing. But they are going to be going out, and y'all are going to get ones very soon. And then the other thing is, because of holidays, Rashawn and I could only fit one Unsober in this month. Because Christmas Eve falls on a Saturday, and Christmas falls on a Sunday, which really fucking sucks just in general.
Should be a rule or a law that we just do not do. Like, we're all in agreement that we don't do this, but
I feel like the post office is closed Monday the 26th because they were just like, yeah, no, we're getting an extra day off. Fuck you.
Yeah, because they have some goddamn sense. I'm like, wherever.
Exactly. So yeah, because of that, and because Rashawn's family is having their big Christmas thing on the 10th, and Owen's family is having their big Christmas thing on the 17th. The only place we could fit it was Sunday the 11th, which by the time this goes up will have passed already. But I have made the subject of this Unsober weird Christmas traditions, because I have looked up some things from around the world, and let me tell you, kids, baffling, truly. Yeah. I'm wait until there's an image that I used for the banner for this Unsober event. When you find out what that is, you are going to lose your mind. It is the weirdest thing.
And sent it to you when I had to text you about the scheduling.
Yeah, because I put it on a fucking Saturday like a dodo bird. But it's Sunday the 11th. I didn't even...
What?
Right? Okay. And you look at it, and it's just kind of like, oh, that's a weird little like cute kitschy thing. It's very, very strange when you find out what it is. Like, I want to tell you a part of it just as a teaser right now. I will. Okay. There, along with that image, which is of like kind of a log that has a face on it with little legs, there is a part
and
of
a hat.
And a hat. And it's got like a blanket draped over it. Like, there is a tradition of beating it with a stick and singing a song. And the song is about pooping.
Okay, that's enough. We're done here.
We're
done here. You guys know I have some very strong rules about what I can and cannot talk about.
and it's like, when I tell you, it is even weirder than it sounds. I swear to God, my mouth was hanging open reading this thing.
Do you remember where it comes from? Like, what country is this from? Do you remember? Is it Germany?
Calvados? Is that a place?
I don't know.
Fuck. I'm going to have to go look it up again.
All right.
But yeah, it is a very like small country that, as you can hear, I don't even remember a name of it because it's something that I never think or speak about. So anyway, yeah, those of you who are interested, the Unsobers are for $20 and up patrons. They're usually twice a month, but holidays and stuff. And I tend to do this kind of thing often where we just pick a subject and Rashawn goes in blind and I just like read to her. The animal facts one is my personal favorite so far because it was truly shocking. It was 50 animal facts. We had 2 full hours and we got through like 20 of them. And I found out about a shrimp that has the punch of a bullet. Do you remember that? Do you remember that shrimp?
Vaguely.
Like some of these, so we have like half that list still to get through that we need to do a second part.
We should revisit that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're at like 30 seconds left.
Yeah, all right. So everybody become patrons, patreon.com/unspoiled. And I love you very much. I hope that everybody listening has a wonderful holiday. And if you don't celebrate, enjoy your days off. Except you won't get any because it's Sunday. Fuck.
Yeah, it's a fucking scam, y'all.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
No, my hands won't be tied down, and I will not lay them down, 'cause I can finally see the truth. So simple but so clear, accepting an ocean's depths were out of reach for me and you. If you're calling up for air, breathing in, you know I'll be there when you first begin. And when everybody's telling us we have no time, we'll prove them wrong again.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.